Hadaya. He is none other than Mr. Vipula Wanigasekera, former diplomatic officer, lecturer in tourism and marketing attached to Sri Lanka Tourism, and he is also the proud author of Pointers to Enlightenment. Sir, we warmly welcome you to Dhamma Hadaya. And as the first question, I thought of asking, people have a tendency to think that Buddhism, or let me call it Dhamma, that Dhamma is not that easy to understand. Dhamma is difficult to understand. So even Lord Buddha, if you just read the story, even Lord Buddha himself, when he attained Nibbana, when he attained enlightenment, he's supposed to have thought that it is difficult for people to understand his doctrine. So although he decided to preach the Dhamma later, what is your opinion on this? Do you think that Dhamma is actually difficult to understand?
Which is pretty obvious, because when Buddha reached enlightenment, the first thought that came into his mind was whether the people would be in a position to understand this philosophy. Firstly, because as Lord Buddha repeatedly said, he's teaching only one thing, that is suffering and way out of suffering. If there is anyone who doesn't understand the true meaning of suffering, there will not be an inclination for them to go in search of a way out of suffering. Now, when I say suffering, which is a fairly strong word, a fairly heavy word, but suffering encompasses everything from worries to anxiety to stress, anger, hatred, all that. It's all suffering. Now, when Lord Buddha says suffering is a cardinal truth in life, one needs to analyze this and see whether it is really true. When Buddha himself says it's a cardinal truth. Now, throughout your life, if you try to ascertain this, whatever that is related to suffering, whatever that you recognize as pleasure, or anything, happiness, is in reality a kind of a pause in which there is absence of suffering, but immediately afterward the suffering arises. So if you really see this happening, then you are really ready to listen to something which would enlighten you towards this coming out of suffering. So that's one reason why Lord Buddha himself thought this might be a difficult task. The second reason is the openness of the people. How open are you to a new philosophy which will probably contradict all the beliefs that you were indulged in before? And that was another reason, because everyone has an opinion, concept, with which you carry on your life with. And then here comes a philosophy which converts everything upside down, which challenges everything that you believed in before. So that was another reason why Lord Buddha himself thought this might be a mission impossible, so to say, at the beginning. But nevertheless, he went on. And it is the subtlety. It's, one might probably call it the depth of Dhamma, but more than that, I would say it's a subtlety, because it challenges the very belief of existence, the belief of the people in existence. And you are encouraged to look at life from a different perspective. And then probably your experience afterwards would be different to what you believed in before. So that was the reason. And I think it is not only during Lord Buddha's time, even now, it's the same thing. The difference between realization and belief. And
as you think, also the reluctance to understand or rather believe something new or to grasp something new.
And to ascertain whether there is any sense in that, because you are very comfortable. That is how, you see, our minds are geared to do two things. One is you seek. So you think this moment is not sufficient, you have to go to the next moment, because next moment is better than this moment. The other function of the mind is you resist. So you always resist. So in between here comes the Dhamma. And the mind doesn't allow you to accept or surrender to any philosophy, because you are too busy with seeking and resisting.
Yeah.
With the self, of course, with the excessive indulgence in self. So that is why it is believed that this conveying this message is a difficult task to people who are already having their own opinions and concepts.
Yeah, and especially because of the subtleness, as you explained.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And remember, after all, Lord Buddha went on a long journey. He learned so many things from so many teachers, and even went on to performing self-mortification, and without having food, and for years, and suffered and he found, no, this is not the way. There's another way out, and no one knows the period in which this truth really clicked, and once that was done, he was free. And that is the freedom that Lord Buddha wanted to convey. But the point is that there is somehow the notion that you have to go through a long journey to achieve that. And whether it is right or wrong, it depends on each individual.
Yeah, definitely. Now, sir, when you consider the Buddha's preachings, the Buddha's discourses of Dhamma, he very often used similes and parables, and sometimes even props whenever he preached, not to one or two but to large audiences. So why do you think that he used all those similes and parables? Was there a special reason for him to do so?
Yeah, the metaphors, the examples. This is why I also titled my book Pointers to Enlightenment, because it contains some of these parables and similes that Lord Buddha had given.
Okay.
The reason being that the language belongs to your mind. And the language is there to express what the mind is experiencing. And here, one is in the search of something which is, you may call mind, or you may call beneath the mind. So the language becomes somewhat ineffective when it comes to conveying Dhamma. So the best way to get this interest in people, or to ignite interest in the people, is to offer them an example. So that triggers some kind of an analysis within you. And then you turn to this search and see whether there is any you continue to, what shall I say, it says you continue to analyze it until the realization occurs. So offering parables was found to be the most effective way. And for instance, Lord Buddha said, in the sky there is no distinction such as east, west, north, south.
Yeah.
Right? But the people, through their minds, have created all the differences. And then and leading a mind-driven life. That's one paragraph. And I remember in this story where this Magandi's father was trying to propose, and Magandi's mother was also there, and Magandi's father tried to introduce, and this is my daughter, so pretty, and this is when I think when both ladies were present, Lord Buddha asked, which one is your daughter, and then I think Magandi's father said, obviously this the prettiest lady. So Buddha said, I don't see any difference, which is a very effective parable. And Magandi's father immediately understood That for Lord Buddha, it's just an age difference. There is nothing. So there are thousands and thousands of parables that he had given throughout. The time factor. Don't live in the past. Don't live in the future. All you have is this moment. So he went on to use a lot of similes, so that he felt that it is a very effective way of. Another lady, I think Kisa Gautami or Patachara, go and find out from a single house where they have not experienced a death or something. So,
Kisa Gautami.
Exactly. So that's a way to open the door to investigate towards finding the truth. So that is why most of the people use, instead of using the direct language, because the direct language is a mind-driven thing. Because it is the world order, it is the social order. That is what the mind tells us to do. But this is something definitely beyond mind.
And as you said, the direct language might be understood by various people in various ways, if it is a language that is used.
It is interpreted in different ways. And
yes.
Even you can see today in so many sermons, so many discourses, you can find that each person interprets it in its own way. So people tend to grasp it in toto, the way the language is presenting. But if it is a parable, if it is an example, you tend to do this analysis yourself. After all, it is a self-realization. You can't give this as a knowledge to another person. In which case, it would have been an easy task. It's a knowledge-based thing. But this is not, like becoming a doctor or an engineer. This is being the true nature of life. The truth.
As
what
it
is
is.
Truth? Life as it is, yes.
Yes, so the Yatha Bhuta Jnana.
Yes.
Yes. So I think that leads me into my next question, because you just happened to say people interpret the same Dhamma in different ways, in various ways. And when you see, when you do come across various scholars and various teachers, who give different versions of the same Dhamma. So how do you think one can reconcile with that?
It is entirely up to you. It is perfectly in order for you to be open to all the versions. But finally, the analysis should take place within you. And that's why I said it is very, very subtle, and you need to untie this knot. It's like a magician. It's... I must tell you this, the other day, someone presented this magic on the book. Okay. And the magic is that there are 6 cards, and you are asked to remember one card. And then press a button, and the computer will tell you the card that you remembered out of 6. And indeed it does. Now that's a magic, obviously. But now when this was presented to me, and the first thing is that this cannot be true, which is obviously this is a magic. So this is not true. So when you start with that kind of a footing, when you approach the question, this cannot be true, then it is much easier, rather than getting caught to the magic and then you are trying to find the solution, how they did it. Actually, what happens is that the card that you have chosen, the computer doesn't show you that card, but the computer hides that card and then presents the rest of the cards and say, look, your card is missing. So it's a trick. So this whole thing is a trick. So that's why, like, the subtlety is explained by way of saying that life is like a dream. Because when you are in the dream, you are a character in the dream. Everything is real. Everything that happens in a dream is real. And we refuse to believe if someone says this is also a dream. How can that be? We have a life. We have a life story. And it's the only difference being that there appears to be a continuity. But if you really analyze it, what you were yesterday is not you who is today. So,
I would like you to elaborate on that, because you just said life is a dream, and I'm sure some of our viewers must be wondering, how can you say it's a dream?
Well, it is an example. We don't want to replicate the dream into this life, but it is just another parable. How come when you are dreaming, if everything is real, now here in this life also we think everything is real.
Yeah.
Is there another awakening from this? For instance, if you look at Anatta Lakkana Sutra, for example, which says that there is no self, which is a very hard hitting statement, that there is no self. It virtually makes you drop everything that you believed as to who you were and what you were. If there is no self, then who is experiencing all this? And so similarly, if someone says, if there is no self, and if there is no sufferer, and it's only suffering, and if you are able to see that, if you are able to realize that all what you believed in this as a life story, and leave that aside, it's a story. It's because you have two things: your story and yourself. When yourself collapses, story also collapses. So then what is left? What is left? And how can you possibly describe what is left? You see, and the only thing perhaps that might get closer to the description of that situation would be freedom. There's no sufferer, and something seems to be happening, and no one wants to know what it is. The Buddha himself said, like in Chula Palakavadya, don't find out, then it is you are gathering knowledge. You will go on and on and on. But it is of no use. But find out who you are and what you are, and that will resolve this. So therefore, I would say, this is a very effective example that now if you walk out of this temple, you might see people walking about. When you look at them, you will see cars, you will see children, you will see. And what is the impression you probably have? It's virtually, it gives you no impression. You can see some movements of people. You are absolutely no concern of what is happening out there. But then if you see me, you might look at me and say hello. Or if you see your family members, then your attention will be more. Now what makes the difference? So that's the way to go. That's the way to look at things. And how come this person is close to other person whom I have never seen is no person to me?
The attachment? That's what you mean?
Yes, there is the attachment, yes. And then you go even further. Clinging, attachment, yes, that is, but then what is beneath that? You see? So everything revolves around this me-ness, myself. So in that sense, all these, like a deep sleep, when you're in a deep sleep, everything comes to a standstill, and because no dreams, nothing. But I don't want to use the word, the deep sleep, but the dream is a better example, because in a dream everything is real. You shout, you suffer, you get hurt, all that happens in a dream. And everything is real at that time. And people refuse even to at least see the possibility of this being another dream-like state.
Definitely. And sir, once again, I think now you happen to just tell our viewers that, when various scholars or various teachers have their own versions or preach their own versions of Dhamma, the reconciling process, I mean, you said it's up to the listener. It's up to the person who is listening or viewing or perhaps reading that particular version. But then again, even though, as you said, you can have an open mind without just being attached in what you call a magic of one person, a magic performed by one person. But don't you think if you go on listening to several people, and if they have various versions, even though you are open-minded, but can't you end up being confused, because the Buddha is not alive, and it might be confusing.
I would probably say it's rather than being confused, you become probably an expert in Dhamma. You know, you can display, you know, you can become a expert in displaying your ability to describe, you know, after all 22,000 sutras, the Abhidhammas and Dhammapadas. You know, if you remember most of these things with the help of most of these sermons, you become an expert in Dhamma. But what is the use? You know, apart from being confused yourself,
Yeah.
and you love to speak on a lot of things and use a lot of Pali and show the people that you are an expert in Dhamma, but it's not helping anyone at the end. You know, this is why, you know, like if you look at Bahya Sutra, for example. How much did Lord Buddha say to the person, you know, who was searching for the truth? And he said, if you see something, you have only seen it. If you hear something, you have only heard it.